So I just got back from the grocery store. Ouch. Anyway, but it reminded me of something that I picked up at a yard sale about 20 years ago. Let me share it with you. So this right here is a ledger that a farm woman in 1924 to 25 kept of all of her expenses. Now this was cool for me to find at a yard sale because in my other life I'm an accountant, so finding a ledger from 1924 was pretty exciting for me. So I'm going to put this aside because I don't want to handle it too much. But in it she details all of her expenses month after month for everything that she bought. Groceries, gifts for her friends. Apparently their car needed a lot of tire work, as cars did back in those days. But it's a fascinating look at what people bought and how much it cost them to buy those things. So I wanted to go through it and talk about what it cost to feed a family of 4 100 years ago. But even more interesting, what were they buying? So let's walk through some of this. There were some surprising things to me that I wasn't expecting to see them purchasing. Now, one of the things that they did purchase a lot of was Corn Flakes. Corn Flakes cost 10 cents back in the day. To buy 3 pounds of meal, which would have been probably cornmeal, it was 12 cents, so about 4 cents a pound. They would have used that for making cornbread, for making puddings. And then 1 pound of grandma powder, which is not powdered grandma, it's actually a soap brand, just in case you were wondering. It came in both powder form and also in bar form, because she buys that on a pretty regular basis. So a pound of grandma powder was 25 cents. A gallon of oil was 17 cents. A pound of coffee, I know this one's going to hurt you, 40 cents for a pound of coffee. I know. Meat, 45 cents. We don't know how much she bought of that. This was one of the surprising things here, was that she was buying bread, and she was buying bread on a regular basis. Now, I would have thought that she would have been baking it at home, and she probably was, but at the time that she was baking this bread, she also had a toddler and another one on the way. So maybe she was trying to give herself a little bit of a break. I don't know. Candy, 20 cents. You can see this in her budget on a regular basis. She's buying a treat for the kid. A gallon of molasses was 80 cents. Grapefruit. Now, grapefruit was one of the fresh produce items that she bought on a pretty regular basis. So grapefruit was 10 cents. Again, she's buying bread, she's buying meat for 30 cents, and then she bought a can of pineapple for 35 cents. Now, this would have been for something special. She was making something special for a treat for her family, or she may have been making something for a church supper, but this would not be a staple item. This was something special she was doing. A package of powdered lemon, which is probably going along with that pineapple. She's probably making some sort of a cake or pie or whatever. And then she buys scouring powder for 15 cents and bluing for 15 cents. Those are both cleaning items. The bluing would have been used for laundry. 2 pounds of brown sugar cost 20 cents. I know. And again, more corn flakes. And she also bought 2 pounds of compound lard. Now, I had to look up compound lard. I'm familiar with lard, but compound lard was new to me. So this is a money saver. So you're mixing your lard with something else to bring down the cost and make it go farther. Now, I would have expected that she would not have been buying lard because they had a farm, but in this case, they do buy lard on a regular basis. 2 pounds of oatmeal, 10 cents. Powdered sugar, 15 cents. Again, this would have been for making some sort of a baked good or some sort of a treat. Cheese, 35 cents. Again, I would expect that they might be making their own cheese. I know they were making their own butter, but she was buying cheese. It wasn't like a regular kind of thing, so it may have been a treat. Steak, 50 cents. Bread, again, 12 cents. Shredded wheat, still around all these years later. A pound of soda. Now, this would have been probably washing soda. So this would have been something that she would have used to wash her floors or maybe to add to her laundry. So a pound of soda, 4 bars of soap, which she specifically said were Palmolive. Again, a brand that is still around, 29 cents. This would have been probably a splurge for her because Palmolive, I'll put up an ad for Palmolive so you can see that it was kind of a special thing for your beauty. Here's another thing that surprised me. They were buying paper napkins. Totally did not see that coming. So she bought paper napkins pretty regularly. So in this case, she bought 2 dozen of them for 10 cents. She bought peroxide for 15 cents. Again, something we still use today. Raisins, 15 cents. Raisins would have been a bit of a splurge at that point, but she's probably using them in some kind of a pudding, like a bread pudding, Indian pudding kind of thing. 2 pounds of saltfish, 30 cents. 2 pounds of soda crackers for 30 cents. And again, some more Corn Flakes. And then she bought some gum for 5 cents, probably a treat for the little girl. Coffee, 40 cents. Fish, 25 cents. A gallon of oil, 17 cents. More rolled oats for 25 cents. Bread, grapefruit. Lard, straight up, not compound. Prunes were 10 cents. Meal, again, probably like a cornmeal or something like that for baking. Onions. Onions were one of the few produce items that she purchased regularly. She bought a tart or some tarts for 6 cents. Again, this was a splurge. She's actually buying baked goods, store-bought, as we would call it in Maine, which is kind of surprising to me, but maybe again it was a treat. Sugar for 50 cents, a half a pound of cream of tartar, 25 cents. So this would have been used for a few different things. Might have been used in like making, meringue for a meringue pie, but it's something that was pretty commonly used in different recipes for different purposes. And then some more bread. In this case, it was only 9 cents. A dozen biscuits for 15 cents. Cookies, a big treat. Again, buying store-bought for 25 cents, and then meat for 70 cents. So feeding a family of 4, mom, dad, a little girl, and an infant, $12.13 for the month. I know that hurts. I know. I get it. Now, some things that turned up that were kind of fun. They would buy ice cream as a treat. It cost 10 cents, so it wasn't on the regular grocery list, but it definitely would have been a splurge item. They bought Fig Newtons back in the day. Again, something that's still around. 25 cents for those Fig Newtons. On another occasion, she bought some coconut or a coconut for 15 cents. So this would have been something that she bought for a recipe. It wouldn't be something that they had on the regular. Maybe she saw a recipe in a magazine, for example. So as far as fresh produce goes, it's a farm, so you would expect that they would be buying very little fresh produce, and that was certainly the case. They would have had it fresh from the garden, or they would have canned it for later on. But they did buy oranges, bananas, grapefruit, lemons, berries, strawberries, and sweet potatoes, which I thought was interesting. Now, the ledger also goes on to detail a lot of different items that they purchased. So, for example, when she was purchasing a gift for someone, it might be something like gloves or a handkerchief. Very practical items. Maybe they would do some embroidery on the handkerchief in order to make it a little more special. But they were very practical gifts, and they didn't cost a lot. They were more special remembrances. She also details how much it cost for things like buying clothes for the children or buying shoes. And then she also mentions the cost of having the doctor over. So it cost $1.50 for one of her children to get doctoring, and then 50 cents for medicine for her other child. So I hope you found that enjoyable, finding out what it cost to feed a family of 4 back 100 years ago. Sorry about that 40-cent coffee thing. I know that was a little cruel. Self-sufficiency was super important back then, just as important now. I will see you again soon, somewhere in time.